Okay.
Good afternoon.
Hello. I think that we already have quorum.
Great.
Robin,
Thank you.
give me 1 second just to double check. Hold on 1 second. We do.
All right. I'll get started at 3:30.
Okay.
And you do have the chat enabled for today, correct?
Yep, I do.
Okay. All right, great. Could I get a volunteer to monitor the chat?
This is Michael Kelly. I can volunteer to monitor the chat.
Okay.
And I'll support Michael if it gets pretty busy.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Beth.
everyone. Okay. Also, I guess I would like if someone could, keep time during public comment period. We have more time today, so I don't think we need to limit people to 1 minute. But we could, at least limit it to 3 minutes if someone could help by just keeping tabs of that.
I can help with that, Robin.
Okay, thanks. All right, well then let's go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone to the March meeting for the Kansas City, Missouri Climate Protection Steering Committee. I'm Robin Ganal, the chair of the committee. Could we do a roll call, Rachel?
Yes. Okay. So starting roll call, Robin Ganal.
Oh, here.
Michael Kelly.
Here.
Thomas Griever. Angela Crawford. Beth Pauley.
Here.
Bill Griffith.
Here.
Bridget Sanderson,
Here.
Ellen Fairchild,
Here.
Kristen Riot. All right,
Great. Thanks,
we have a
Rachel.
quorum. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, let's start first with approving the minutes for January and February. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes, or are there any changes anyone wanted to see?
Motion to approve.
Thanks, Ellen. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. So I wanted to just say a few things to get started. Today, we're going to be presenting the draft of the climate plan, trying to keep it somewhat brief because our focus today really is to hear from everyone in the community who's made time to be here today. And so I'm first going to have Laura walk us through some of the key strategies that are included in the plan to show how the city plans to meet or exceed the targets approved by council about 2 years ago. And so we have the chat available, and we'll be taking questions and public comments after the presentation. We hope to have about an hour to do that. So I also just wanted to say, that a couple things about the committee and this process and the plan before I turn it over to Laura. This committee was appointed by Mayor Lucas to guide this process and produce a plan that best serves the residents of the city of Kansas City and clearly shows residents how the city will meet or exceed the targets approved by council. And personally, I wanted to serve on this committee to be a voice for other concerned parents who are counting on our local leaders to do their part to address the climate crisis and to ensure that this plan isn't watered down by the fossil fuel industry or others invested in status quo. And so today we're going to be going through the plan and taking questions and public comments. I want the community to know that throughout this process, some key decisions and assumptions have been made, frankly, without our committee's knowledge or input. And so, for example, it was decided without our knowledge to include organizations that take money from Spire under the umbrella of the community. Also, since last fall, our committee has been insisting on transparency, especially around how strategies would be prioritized to meet or exceed our goals. But so far, that hasn't been incorporated into the draft. And we were just told last week that the transparent process that we've recommended and voted on would not be possible because the city unilaterally decided not to include that recommendation without telling us. And so I just feel that our community and our committee deserve to know why that these decisions are being made. As these decisions have come to our committee's attention, we've been working hard to fix that. But some of the fixes and recommendations that we have voted on to incorporate last month have still not been incorporated, and we have no next meeting scheduled with the consultant to get them incorporated. So we want to get this plan across the finish line. We have no time to waste, but we're not going to be a rubber stamp. And to ensure we stay on schedule, I've asked that Brendel work with myself and others who would like to participate on this committee to finish incorporating our comments. So far, I have been told that wouldn't be possible. So at this point, I would just like to make a motion that Brendel and OEQ make themselves available for working sessions this week to finish incorporating our recommendations that the committee voted on and work through areas where we are not aligned and publish another updated draft by next Monday on the city's website for the public to see. So I would like to ask if I could get a second for that motion.
I second that motion.
Okay. Is there any discussion, or would the committee members like to add anything to what I've just said?
I was going to note that Andy Savicino has his hand up, so let him come off of mute.
Okay. I don't think I can control that.
No, thank you. I think I'm good. So I just wanted to go on record here to say that it's unfortunate, I think, that Robin has made these particular suggestions. I think we as staff have made ourselves readily available to the steering committee. We've shared our concerns in terms of our scope with the contract with Brendel, and we've laid out a course of action to work with the working groups to process the recommendations from the community. So we did our best as staff to incorporate those things that the steering committee has suggested to make sure that did not get lost to community, so that they could see what the suggestions were from the community as well as the steering committee. So we did our best in working under the scope of the contract that we have to get that out there. And we made it very clear we would make whatever time we could available to the working groups to process the comments as they come in from the community. So that is the commitment that we held to. We literally just got this launched on Wednesday of last week, and we're literally just getting started. So I think it's unfair to characterize that staff has not been readily available to work through this process. We have a lot on our plate. This is a high priority for our office, but there are plenty of other things that we're working on as well with an extremely short staff, okay? So I just want to go on record to say that on behalf of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Is there any other discussion?
Laura has her hand up.
Okay.
I just also wanted to point out that because we have so little left in the Brendel contract as we're coming towards the end of this process, that Brendel is really willing to work with the committee to get all these things incorporated, but they also really wanted to make sure that community had time for input so that you all could process the community input as well, and we could deal with that all in as concisely as we can in one big meeting, so we weren't spending so much consultant time on little pieces that may change as we get more input from community. So it was more of a strategy that the reason we haven't scheduled that meeting yet is we're so early on in the public comment process. And we haven't even had a chance to get the public comment back or the internal comment back from some of city staff as well. So like all of those pieces, we're trying to make sure we have the most robust conversation we have when we have it. It's just all I wanted to add.
Kristen Riad has her hand up as well.
Hopefully, can you all hear me? And I'm sorry
Yes.
that I can't turn this down. A concern that I have is beginning to set up more of an adversarial relationship with these different entities that I think we are going to need very much to accomplish what it is that I believe Robin and everybody on this committee wants to accomplish. My organization, Bridging the Gap, has worked for 30 years on these issues in Kansas City, and the philosophy of our founder, which is one that I really strongly believe in myself, is that in order to make real progress on gnarly, difficult problems like climate change, they don't get any more difficult. You need to have everybody at the table and everybody talking in a civilized way in order to make forward progress. And I think nurturing any kind of divisiveness, whether it be with staff or, our local utilities, et cetera, in the end will not serve the very purposes that I know you're dedicated to, and I certainly am dedicated to. So in my mind, just being able to be understanding of each other's barriers and challenges, and to accept that we are all at fault. We're all damaging the environment in our own ways, and going forward to see what we can do positively together is the atmosphere that I would like to cultivate. And I know particularly that the staff of OEQ is very hardworking. They've got a lot of projects, some of which I am directly funded by, in full disclosure. Bridging the Gap is funded by, but those projects are directly decreasing the carbon footprint of Kansas City. And so, I mean, they deserve our support as well. So enough said, I'll try to get this hand waving thing off of here.
Michael, did you have your hand up?
I'll defer right now to Beth.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael and Robin. I do appreciate everybody's comments, including Kristen's, including Andy's and Laura's. I do want to speak to why I support Robin's motion to continue to work with Brundle during this draft. And part of that is coming from a just factual, scientific-based perspective, as there are currently really pretty glaring issues with the draft that I don't feel like represents what this committee is working towards either. So for example, the draft states that purchasing renewable energy adding renewable energy to the grid will increase electric rates. And the source that they cite says that the opposite of that. I think that that is a really dangerous talking point for a climate protection plan to states, especially since the comments that we've gotten so far are talking about how expensive green energy is. So I just want to reiterate that this isn't anything personal. This is something that, you know, when I expressed my concern with this information that is frankly fossil fuel misinformation, and with all of the science and data that we have, we do need to get off of fossil fuels as quickly as we can. We cannot run the risk of peddling any fossil fuel misinformation, and we are already seeing the consequences of that. So that is one reason why I support Robin's motion. I would have, in hindsight, and I completely appreciate that, you know, it's easy to look back in hindsight. I think that there were ways that could have been like more collaborative throughout this entire process, so we didn't have to get to this point. But I do think that it is incumbent upon us to take the recommendations and the feedback from the committee seriously. Thank you.
Bridget.
Well, yeah, I also support Robin's plan. I think because my biggest frustration, and again, I don't think that this is anybody's fault, and I think Beth actually kind of wordsmithed this perfectly of, you know, hindsight, we could have worked a little bit more collaboratively. But I think my biggest frustration is how, you know, I know everybody's working hard, and we worked really hard on the recommendations from the committee. And then before it went out to the public, that it was the Brundle group had questions and we weren't reached out to. So I'd love to sit down and have conversations with them about what we were thinking. So that's just, I also support the idea of getting more meetings with Brundle group.
And Ellen.
Yeah, mine is probably more of a process question. So some of these things that we want to add or change, isn't the public comment period part of where that can happen? Question mark. I thought that was kind of the point of the public comment session, so that, you know, whoever could continue to put in comments and, you know, make corrections to the report.
I think where I was
For the
coming
city to
from
consider.
is that there seemed to be a couple fundamental areas where I don't necessarily think we're in enough of an alignment. that I felt in order to keep things on schedule and ensure that by our next meeting, we're going to be ready to approve this, that these discussions need to happen sooner rather than later, at least in terms of our comments that we submitted at our last meeting. So yes, I think we'll be working together to figure out how to incorporate public comments over the next few weeks as well. But I would hate to wait too long if, in case there's anything, that would end up delaying finishing the draft.
Beth, do you have your hand up for something else? Actually, hold on. I think,
sorry, I'll take it down.
Okay, I think Laura has her hand up, so.
Yeah, the only other thing I wanted to mention is that our consultants, several of our consultant team took a vacation day on Friday, a well-deserved one that we had no control over. We did get a draft up, and I sent this out to Robin, of all of the steering committee recommendations with the reasons they weren't incorporated, where Brindle had questions. And when we last spoke, we discussed that what we would do was allow the CPSC to make their edits in that spreadsheet document to help save some consultant time and funding that we'd like to use to make sure we have time to incorporate all of these changes into the final plan. So, I mean, that is up, and I don't know if Robin has forwarded on to the rest of the committee or if she would like me to do that, but that is definitely a place where we can address really quickly and easily some of those things that once they're clarified, we could just put them in the plan moving forward. So I just wanted you to know that's out there this morning.
And thank you, Laura. And I will send it on to the rest of the committee. There were 2 or 3 areas that said for further discussion. And so those especially, I thought, needed a meeting, not just a back and forth within the spreadsheet.
And yeah, I definitely think those do. And I really think that Brindle was waiting because we do think we can get that all taken care of in a big meeting where we're all discussing it together. But we really wanted to make sure that we had time to digest the public comments that might have been either in line with that, but maybe a little bit different perspective, or maybe even against some of that. So there was, we had all the pieces together, so we didn't have to come back again towards the very end and be like, oh my gosh, now we've got all these other things that are coming up as well that we would have liked to discuss. So it was trying to minimize meetings, maximize what we can get out of those meetings. But I mean, we can get the meeting done sooner rather than later with Brindle. And then it just, depending on what's left in the budget and the contract time, we'll have to figure out what we can do with the remaining comments and getting your comments on those as well. And maybe we can do that in a meeting here. But this particular week is really hard for staff. We've got our building performance standards kickoff as well. Going on this week, we're interviewing our Fuse fellow to help with those building performance standards. I mean, it is a packed week. So we're trying hard, but we can't make more time in the day than there already is.
So I'll make my comments brief because I know the majority of our time is supposed to be for people to give their comments. I can't support this. It goes a little bit too far in terms of kind of misaligning the work that's been done by city staff up to this point. I know that there have been disagreements between Climate Protection Steering Committee members and staff, but I worry that the route that we're going with a motion like this is setting ourselves up for very, very negative commentary and negative approaches that don't actually get us closer towards developing a plan that is in line with our need to come up with a way to lower our carbon emissions. I understand the want to try to get this plan as perfect as possible, but I don't think that this is the way to do it. So I will not be supporting this measure.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, well, let's go ahead and put it to a vote then so we can move on to the presentation. So all in favor of, I guess, I don't know. Laura, I'm not trying to be adversarial in this. We just want to make sure that we have time to work with Brendel and have our recommendations incorporated.
Do we
So-
really need a vote on this, or can we just
No.
offline try to figure out the quickest time that people can get together?
I would be in favor of that, Kristen. So,
Yes, I mean, not just to reiterate, here at OEQ, we're trying to make ourselves available as much as possible to the steering committee. We promised additional meetings for the working groups. I think even Laura suggested today something we talked about in-house, an additional steering committee meeting if necessary before the next monthly meeting. So we're happy to work through this process as many times as often as necessary. Just trying to be accommodating of our schedules as they are. And this week is pretty rough on us, but we can get these meetings with the working groups scheduled. We can get them on the books, or if not this week, certainly the following week. But to try to maximize our effectiveness, we wanted to capture as much community comment and run them through the working groups to allow you guys to vet through those comments. We need your support. We need your expertise to kind of help screen that. It can't fall on the staff alone to do that. So we need your help. So all I'm saying is the plan just got released, and we've been dealing with a lot of administrative stuff behind the scene to get this to this point. So not that we don't want to be accommodating. We do want to be accommodating. Just work with us to set up some times.
all right. Well, then I would be okay with withdrawing the motion and just working with staff to set up those meetings. So,
Thank you.
So with that, I guess we can go ahead and turn it over to Laura to present the plan to the community.
Okay, I've got so many presentations open. I'm trying to find my window. Oh, come on. Really? You're going to do this to me today? There we go. Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So some of you, I think, were here when we presented the plan to the EMC when we went live. And so I kind of, just because we really want to take public comment and get your comment this time, and also kind of quickly orient and align those members of the public that weren't in the EMC meeting and some of the CPSC members. I've kind of skipped over the first part of this, which sort of explained our outreach and our various phases up to this point. They are available on our playbook website, and I've presented something similar to this committee before. So I'm going to skip that and go straight into the plan orientation part of this. And I have changed this a little bit, and I'm welcome to take questions afterwards. We'll get through this as quick as I can. So the document objectives of this plan was that it was accessible, that we use language that community could understand and not a whole lot of technical jargon, and that we built this to be a living document. And I want to make sure that everyone understands, because I'm hearing some of this even now. The plan is not the policy. The plan is the adoption of the ideas that are going to be required to create the policy. So just that being said, so we have an overarching strategy, but all the little pieces that are going to go into making that strategy work are going to take a lot more meetings with public. And I know we're going to have to move quickly. That's why we have these short-term implementation, prioritization of some of these strategies. We're going to have to move quickly, but we still have to get input in from community in order to implement that policy in a way that meets everyone's needs and still moves the needle. So we are trying to make it technically credible using sources that have been cited in a well as over time, and then also allow our assumptions to be checked as conditions change over time. This is a moving needle on everything with climate change right now. People are coming to, there's great things going on, and things are being learned every day. So we want to be sure that we can allow for changes over time. And then to spur urgent action at all levels of community, from those that just want to get involved on the personal level to those that are going to help us write policy and provide specific areas for that. So this is just a quick place. This is how the plan is organized. I'm not going to go much into this. You can look that in the table of contents. Tips for reading the plan. Just become really familiar with the 6 climate action sections that we're working in. 3 of these sections are really going to move the needle on climate mitigation. A couple are really mainly natural systems of food are going to really move the needle on sequestration. And then resiliency is kind of across all of these in different ways. So you'll see these little icons throughout the plan, and the color scheme fits throughout the plan for each of those areas. So if you see something that's headed in red, it's a mobility strategy, purple for food, etc. And then also keep an eye out for the equity icon. So this was how we looked at equity when we tried to frame this plan in the beginning. So we have those in each area, and those were vetted through our climate justice workers and our equity consultant on this process, and with a lot of dialogue. So those are in there as well. All right, and then as far as tips for reading the plan, we prefer, if you can, that you read the online version of the plan. It's an interactive Adobe document, and I'm hoping I cannot see it because I'm at home today. I've got 2 kids at home on spring break, so I cannot do my 2-screen thing. So Rachel or Chris or someone, if you could drop a link to the interactive plan in the chat, that would be great. Just to discover, this is a radar graph of how all of the strategies combined work together. So if you go to the online plan, you can toggle different things on and off. So in the very center here of this is literally, it doesn't do a whole lot of anything for what we need. But as the different strategies, you see the ones that have the different colors going all the way out to the outside of the circle. Those are going to move the needle the most on various things. So we've kind of shown how we're getting benefits across different sectors throughout the different strategy areas. So just kind of breaking this down, this is actually broken down in the online plan, so you can see it and move it. And I think that was on page, I can't see down there, is it 19? Can't see my own document with everything going on. Okay, so you can go to page 19 for that interactive piece. So then the strategies specifically supporting mitigation. Uh-oh, my sharing screen just go away? What is going on? Sorry, guys. All right, back up right where we were. Okay, so these particular strategies over here are the ones that are really going to move the needle on climate mitigation. That's actually reducing the carbon that we're putting out. And those are, building strategies, improving our building energy efficiency, renewable energy in the grid, transitioning building systems to electricity. Those are the ones that we know are really going to move the needle, as well as some of our mobility strategies, which if we're not, shifting trips to biking and walking, and then reducing our vehicle emissions through low and no emission vehicles. Those are the ones we really know are going to move the needle on the mitigation part of this. Then we have strategies that specifically support resiliency. I'm sorry, did someone have a question? Okay. These are the ones that really support resiliency, and some of them are intuitive. Obviously, if we've got trees and natural areas are going to help us preserve resiliency and improving our grid stability and resilience to extreme weather, those kind of things. And then efficient, affordable, durable homes. So those kind of things are going to help support our resiliency strategy. So when you're reading the plan, you can explore how each strategy will help us achieve our climate goals. So each strategy will have the strategy impact listed and its greenhouse gas reduction emission potential, and then whether or not it has resiliency benefits, and then additional co-benefits that would apply to that particular strategy. So across the top is sort of the legend on how to read these. underneath there's a co-benefits legend that shows that, you know, the dollar signs, economic recovery, we've got carbon sequestration, health and wellness, environmental justice. And then I've shown below just an example of one of the strategies and how it kind of fits, and you will see that framework. And those are throughout each of the strategies, what co-benefits are there, whether or not it's got a resiliency benefit, and then its greenhouse gas reduction potential. More than 10% is a pretty good greenhouse gas reduction potential. So those are your high ones. Between 5 and 10 is medium, and then less than 5 is low. So how are we going to reach our goals? So right now we are looking at just with Evergy's plan, their IRP plan to reduce their the amount of carbon in their electric mix and increase renewables. We are on line to meet our 2025 goal if we, you know, especially with the city going to all wind energy. So we're looking there with we're looking to meet that already with our electricity emissions factor. 2030, if we have a carbon-free grid on 2030, which is our goal, then we will exceed our 50% emissions reduction goal just with that. We will need large-scale renewable energy agreements to meet this goal, and more decentralized energy as well throughout Kansas City. Then for 2040, to reach carbon neutrality, there is a gap between all the strategies we have identified and carbon neutrality. So that gap, which you know, is what approximately 11%, will need to be met through improvements in technology or feasibility of larger scale implementation, like improved cost effectiveness, improved sequestration and land use. There's a lot of possibilities because we really don't know exactly how we're going to get there. There's just some technologies coming down the pike that are not tried and true yet. We're waiting for costs to drop on some things. So getting there, we still do have that gap that we're looking to fill. So this graph here is just the completely filled out graph of an interactive graph that's on page 22 of the online draft plan. What this shows is, you see the decreasing line here, dashed line, that is our current goal set by Resolution 05 to meet carbon neutrality and where we have to go. Under that graph, you'll see that we need mobility strategies, energy supply strategies, and homes and building strategies. All of the strategies that were previously identified as those that we're going to need to move the needle on mitigation are going to be required to get where we are. And we're going to be required, as you can see, they all start pretty much now. So we're going to have to start in all of these strategies right now on the ones that move the needle in order to get there. And as we build out policy and get more people on board and grid mixes change, et cetera, it's going to increase and for mobility as we increase the number of electric vehicles that are out there in the market and the number of charging stations, so people feel more comfortable adopting, it's gonna widen that. And so that's where we're gonna get, that's how we're gonna get to our 2040 goal. And you can see down here that there is this little green space right here that is not yet identified. And that part of that is why this is a living document and a living plan, and why we have a short-term implementation strategy on what we really need to start working on right now to move the needle. And then as we go forward, throughout till 2040, things are going to change, and we're going to have to come back to the table with the CPSC and with community. Hey, these are the new things that are coming out. What's going to work for Kansas City? And we're going to have a dialogue about that. So another thing that we're really going to need for the plan is the city is we've asked for additional staff. You know, there's always the hope that we can have additional staff to help implement these things, but that is not a guarantee. That is as much a policy and a politics decision as anything else. So we really need to find out who is out there moving the needle, either on these strategies or just in the area of these strategies, so that we could reach out to them and start to leverage resources and partnerships to really move things forward, because we can't do it all here at the city. And relying on the city to be able to afford to bring on all the staff, it's a great thing, but it's just not completely the most reliable thing. We really need to have everybody on board. So another thing, when we're reading the plan, there are tools for empowering neighborhoods. Part of this is we really want to empower neighborhoods. These are strategies that have worked throughout other cities and some that we're even implementing here in Kansas City, either on small scale or sometimes even large scale. So those neighborhood empowering implementation tools, we really want folks to take a look at that as they're reviewing the plan and see if that seems like something they think we can accomplish here, and then help us work to move that forward. Also, for community that's reviewing the plan, just so you know, the first 4 documents listed up here at the top in the square, the equity-centered plan, the greenhouse gas inventory, the climate risk and vulnerability assessment, and the mitigation scenario analysis, those are pretty much how we did the plan document. That's so you can read them if you want to, if you're the kind of data geek that likes to do that and wants to give us some opportunities we may have missed in there, great. But where we can really move the needle is by you guys reviewing the plan that's out there, and then the short-term implementation plan. So the short-term implementation plan, which is in that supplemental documentation, you can also find on the Playbook site, which I don't know if it's been dropped in chat, but will be shortly, I'm sure. That is the document to help us accelerate plan implementation. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to talk fast so we can get to public comment. So it includes the details for each action that we identified in the plan. And this was done in our strategy sessions and then our strategy prioritization sessions by asking our people in Kansas City and our stakeholders and partners what they thought we could do right now, what we were already working on, what already had momentum, and what other groups were already working on, so we could really help start moving those actions forward. So please look at that document and see if there's anything that's missing from the short-term implementation plan that you think needs to be added, or any equity considerations that we may have missed when we were looking through this and polling our partners. And then if there's steps to implementation or considerations that would help us get these going right now, it'd be great to have input. All right, so this is just an example of one of the actions in the short-term implementation plan, which is expanding alternative transportation programs. Rideshare KC came forward at one of our strategy sessions and said, they're already kind of working on this in the region. They'd be happy to be an implementation leader. Just because somebody has identified themselves as an implementation leader doesn't mean they're the only implementation leader. Some of these plans can have multiple implementation leaders implementing across different sectors. Some may be on a regional level, some may be in a neighborhood level. So we can identify those additional implementation leaders. And then in this particular strategy, these were the supporting parties that we knew had to be at the table in order to make this happen. So those are all those implementation leaders, the parties that are in there, and equity considerations are all things that you guys can have input into in this process. Once again, that thing's moving. Hold on. Okay. Next steps, real quick. We're hoping the deadline for public review is April 12th. We're hoping we can get everything in as soon as possible, especially if you've got big ideas that are going to need to be vetted by the CPSC and our consultant. The earlier, the better, so we have time to really have a robust dialogue about that internally with our groups here. And we're hoping that the CPSC will meet on April 25th after having seen all this dialogue and having seen the final plan. They'll meet and to approve the final plan, and then we can take that final plan to council. We're hoping to take it to a business session on April 28th, but business sessions are kind of at the whim of council. Sometimes really important things come up and we get bumped off of business session. Sometimes they give us an hour, but then in the end, we only have 15 minutes to present. So that is a hope. That's why it says tentative there. It doesn't mean it will happen. If we don't get a chance to present to business session, then what we will do is the plan will just go to committee. We're not sure which committee it will be housed in yet, but when the committee deliberates the plan, OEQ has a chance to kind of talk about our process and what the final plan is like. That's where public and the CPSC has the opportunity to come in and support the plan, or even talk about things that may need to be changed in the plan before council should support it. Then what happens if once it leaves committee will either say, no, we got to go back to the drawing board, or advance do pass. And if they say advance do pass, then they advance it to final council. And once it hits final council chambers and it's out of committee, there's no public comment at that point. That's just council deliberating after hearing what the committee says. So if you want to have input going forward, that committee session is the way to go, council committee. All right, so how to access the plan and provide feedback. All of the plan documents are on our playbook site. They're also on our internal city site. We are making paper copies available for those folks that and groups that are not necessarily as online savvy as others. We also have already put together a agreement with the Kansas City Library. They're going to have the plan available to check out and comment just with, paper copies you can comment on at the library and leave your paper comments if you don't want to go online. And the library is going to collect those for us and to get that back to our consultant as well. If you are internet savvy, we really would love for you to comment on the plan using the playbook site. There's a plan comments button. We're already getting some really good comments. We're also getting some comments that were expected that are maybe not as helpful to moving the plan forward. But if you could comment there in the plan comments area, we're also hoping to find, we've been kind of through this whole process trying to find a plan name that is less of a mouthful than Climate Protection and Resiliency Plan. So if you've got ideas, there's an ideas button there. You can do that as well. If you have a lot of comments or you don't want your comments to be public because anything put in the plan comments site will be public, you can email us at oeq@kcmo.org with comments directly, or you can call. We may not be able to actually sit down with you right there and take all of your comments, but if we can't, if we're busy, we can schedule a conversation so we can sit down and you can talk us through your comments as well. So we want to be as available as we can, but also we have jobs that we have to do outside of just this feedback period. So please feel free to email us that way. Please don't email me directly. I know a lot of you have my email address, but this is the way we're keeping track of it and making sure that every plan comment doesn't get lost somewhere in a spam folder or glossed over with 50 other emails. So the OEQ email is the one to go to. I'm checking it, the whole office is checking it, and we're putting them all in a specific folder and logging all of the comments we get in a spreadsheet. Also, to make this plan yours, we want this plan to be Kansas City plan. So if you see the photos in the plan now, those photos may not all be there at the end. We would love to have your photos of areas of Kansas City that really resonate with you. You can send those to us as well, just where it is and who to attribute it to. So yes, share those ideas, titles, and your photos, just like we said before. And that is all I have, and I'm open for quick questions before we take public comment. The one last thing I did want to say is we had a public session scheduled for this Wednesday. We're trying right now to see if we're going to get the amount of feedback we wanted for people attending that meeting. We may end up moving it out a week just because due to some internal administrative stuff, that did not, I don't think it posted to Twitter at the timeline or posted to social media in general on the timeline it was supposed to. So we'll see how that goes. We may end up rescheduling it for the following week. And that is, I'm trying to leave you guys time, but still get you through everything. So
let me see, Laura, thank you for the presentation. I think Andy already answered the question from Klaus Warzenik, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Klaus. It looks like Ryan Dickey had a question. What will be the committee's role in the plan once it moves to City Council, if any?
Are you the Climate Protection Steering Committee going forward?
Yes.
That is actually outlined by ordinance, what they do once the plan moves forward. And I will have to find that real quick, exactly what that role is. No, it's when the committee was originally put together in back when we've had a plan since 2008, and when that 2008 plan was originally done, that's when we created the Climate Protection Steering Committee. And I know that their process, once we've actually moved to implementation and once it's in council, we'd love to have them submit a letter of support. And then once the plan is adopted, then it's their goal to help us with reviewing the budgets, prioritizing any policy or program that we want to get going in the community, they will have input into that as well. So the committee's role is not just creating the plan, it's also making sure the plan is implemented and also following up to make sure that we're gathering the right metrics and that we're really moving the needle. So it's an ongoing job, and I can find that exact language, but it's just going to take me a minute.
I can drop it in the chat, Laura. I've got it.
Oh, great. Thanks.
All right.
Okay. Ryan, thank you for the question. Is there anyone else? Okay. Thank you again, Laura. I'll turn it back over to Robin.
Thanks, Michael. So I guess, yeah, we have pretty much dedicated the rest of this meeting today to answering any other questions any member of the community might have, or to hearing any comments the public would like to make today. So the floor is really yours. Just raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment or ask a question.
Really quickly, while people are waiting for that, I will note that Andy dropped in the chat, the committee shall advise the city council on the implementation of the city's climate protection plan. The committee shall also review plans, budgets, programs, and actions of the city which significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions while preserving economic development, transportation options, and the ability of responsible producers of energy to provide a stable and cost-effective energy supply. The committee shall advise the city council as to important developments related to the climate protection plan as appropriate. And I will also note, as Beth has noted in the chat, for those who missed the beginning of the meeting, we have allotted 3 minutes per person for comment. And so I think the first hand that we have up is for Adam Rossi. So Adam, we will get you unmuted, and then for 3 minutes, the floor will be yours.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Thanks. Well, first of all, I just want to thank the Climate Protection Steering Committee for prioritizing public comment in this meeting and giving it so much time. That means a lot, and it shows you where priorities lie. So definitely appreciate that. I'm excited about the plan. Yeah, thanks to the city and Brendel Group and the committee and everyone who helped make this plan possible to get to this point. Even at the beginning of the meeting, during those comments, I was just thinking, man, if a conversation is difficult, it's worth having, as one of my friends' t-shirts says. So yeah, I'm very optimistic, and I'm excited about the future of Kansas City and our role in reversing global warming. That being said, something that's just always on my mind, is the role of coal in Evergy's mix and in the generation mix of this area. United States, across the whole country, coal represents about 20% of energy generation. And for Evergy, the latest numbers I can find, it's 37%. So I just call on Evergy. I didn't see anything about closing the Hawthorne plant in the plan. I know Lara said, this is not supposed to, this is not policy. It's a guiding document, which is good. I understand that. But I really think we aggressively need to be closing coal plants. It seems like such low hanging fruit to me. And I get that, that being said, it's a big thing, right? It doesn't happen. You don't just snap your fingers and it happens. It's a big thing. It's got to go through public utility or utility commissions. We've got, we're talking about a lot of job displacement. We're talking about baseline or baseload energy. So we have to generate that and generate a lot more energy using other methods, using renewable methods. But it has to happen, and it's not going to happen until you do it. So, I get that it's a big thing, but we got to move on that. During Larry's presentation earlier, she was talking about the city having a carbon-free grid by 2030. So I assume that means no coal is part of that, but I'm excited about that possibility. And then lastly, I'll say in terms of the committee itself, I am thank the committee for the work they're doing. I still emailed and called the mayor's office, but I know some people have been campaigning for Maureen and Sari and Beto Lugo Martinez to fill the 2 vacancies on the committee. And given that there are 2 vacancies, I really support them being on the committee. So I look to have those vacancies filled. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Adam. You see, I also note a few more comments in the chat. Let me see. Adam, Kristen Riot said, "What is your source on coal being 20% nationally? That seems very low to me. Thanks." And you can just share that in the chat if you want, Adam. Moving on, the next person we have, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name, Michaela Meckel.
Yes, you got that right. Thank you. Hi, thanks so much for giving me the opportunity. Can you all hear me? Before I dive in.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to provide my feedback. My name is Michaela Meckel, and I'm a Kansas City resident here to provide input about why I think Kansas City needs to take immediate and bold action to address climate change. When you start learning about climate change, you read about a lot of dates that feel far away, dates in the future when scarier and scarier things will start to happen if we don't start making changes now. And with these dates in the future, it can sometimes feel like we can just keep doing what we're doing now and not worry. But when you have a 2-year-old daughter like I do, far off dates start to feel a lot closer. I want a future for my daughter where she can thrive, and if she someday wants to have a family, where her family can thrive, not a world full of drought, wildfires, hurricanes, and climate-based conflict. So that's why I'm calling on Kansas City to take action and commit to move the city to 0 carbon by 2040. To get there, we need to do things like closing the Hawthorne coal plant by 2025 and all remaining coal plants by 2030. To get there in a just way, we need to also make sure we listen to all communities as we build our path to a 0 carbon future. It can't be only the communities of power and privilege who make the decisions. If we don't have a seat for everyone at the table, we will end up recreating the inequalities of today. So let's join together and make Kansas City a leader in creating an equitable, healthy climate future for my daughter and for every child. And with that, I cede my time.
Okay, thank you, Michaela. And Adam dropped the link to his source in the chat for anyone who might be interested in that. The next person we have is Ryan Dickey. Ryan, if you're speaking, we cannot
Can you all
hear
hear me
you.
now?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We go through this every time. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. So basically, my name is Ryan. I live in the 4th District. I'm a leader with Sunrise KC. I'll start with some general criticism about the plan itself that I have. A big thing I'd like to see would be measurable outcomes associated with each of our strategies. That way we have something that we can look back on to measure our progress moving forward with this plan, and also just help keep our city accountable as we move through. People in positions will change, and it'll be good to have a plan where we can look back at measurable targets and say, are we there, are we not, and know how much work we have to do after that point. I was also, I won't say too much about this. I was also confused to see why some of the edits we watched at the last meeting hadn't made it in yet, while other edits had. I definitely think some of the edits we saw get approved at the last CPSC meeting were, I was excited about them. I thought they were very good changes and good strategies to include the plan. I would like to see this committee work together with OEQ in the future and get those edits in there. But I also understand that there are limits on what you can do with the amount of people power you have. So I'm not angry about that right now. I would love to see those changes being made to the plan, though, especially closing the Hawthorne coal plant by 2025. I think now is a good time to start thinking about that and working on that, and is also just such a huge part of increasing the amount of renewable energies we have in the mix. That does mean building new renewable energy, but that also means decreasing the amount of fossil fuels that we are using to produce our energy. So that's a major change I would like to see. I also remember there being more ambitious language around building decarbonization discussed in the last meeting as well. I would like to see a little more ambition with building decarbonization, especially I would like to see incentives that will help tenants and apartment buildings or, house, I would like to see tenants have a pathway to getting distributed generation and energy efficiency upgrades as well through, if that means incentivizing landlords, then incentivizing landlords is the way to go. But I would like to see some sort of incentivization for that to happen for tenants as well, without rents increasing. I do not want to see anything come out of this plan. I think it would be a terrible result to see this plan come out and see tenants watch their rent rise and be able to point to, green infrastructure being built and things like that. I would really hate to see that, because there are ways we can do this without displacing people. I'd also like to see more the public transit staffing addressed. I feel like it's not, I feel like our buses are not as staffed as they could be and should be, especially if we want to have robust, reliable public transport. I see 15 seconds. Thank you, Beth. So I'd like to see more language to make sure that our public transport is staffed, along with endorsing Mehreen and Beto to fill the open seats on this committee as well, because it just doesn't make sense to finalize a plan with an empty committee, especially when we have two people who have been coming to these meetings pretty routinely and have a lot of knowledge about climate and climate organizing. Thank you very much.
Okay, Ryan, thank you for your comments. Let's see, the next person that I have here is, excuse me, is Kaylee Ford.
Hello, can you hear me all right? All right.
Kaylee, we can barely hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Kaylee Ford, and I'm from the Northland, and I'm a leader with Sunrise Movement KC. I have a personal stake in this plan as a young person, and I'm here to repeat previous grievances with this plan that I addressed last meeting in my comments, and a demand for this committee to really value community input. Many changes were proposed in the last meeting and have not been made, and I'm glad for an explanation as to why they were not made, although it is frankly still disappointing considering this plan is being pushed to the public now. A few of those to mention is there's no mention of the Hawthorne coal plant or it closing by 2025. There's no mention of tenants' rights or protecting renters and property owners from abusive landlords and gentrification. There are no words in this plan for fixing the bus system and putting bus workers and bus drivers first. And language is still vague, and building decarbonization language approved the last meeting was not added. This new version of the plan shows that even after receiving feedback and hearing our testimonies, that the community is still not being heard. This committee and city council must not give in to the whims of Evergy-inspired executives and must reject and call out blatant lies that are being used to set us back on bold climate action. I call on this committee to push Mayor Quinton Lucas, whom we have called and emailed persistently, to support community representatives Maureen Ansari of Sunrise Movement KC and Beto Lugar Martinez of Clean Air Now to be appointed to this committee. It is unacceptable to create a plan with 2 vacancies, and while the community and climate justice advocates are being ignored. I cannot accept a plan where promises have not been kept and the community has been continuously unprioritized. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaylee, for your comments. I think the next person we have is, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name, Karen Unlehuth.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks very much for giving me a couple of minutes here. Can you all hear me? Okay, good.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, a couple of points I wanted to make. One is that the plan does make mention of the importance of energy efficiency, and energy efficiency is often described as the cheapest source of energy. And that's why that's the first thing that I think we need to do. And I think that one really great way to get energy efficiency going is to finance it through a system known as pay-as-you-save. Evergy is currently doing an experiment with pay-as-you-save. The basic idea is that the utility provides the money to pay for efficiency enhancements, and the utility, I believe, actually owns them until they get paid off. And they are getting a really robust response to this offer of pays. And I think that we really need to monitor what's happening with pays, and that we probably need to lean very hard on Evergy to offer pays to all of their customers. I think it's really a great way to get efficiency to happen for people at all income levels. Secondly, I think we need to be more efficient by enhancing our building code, our energy efficiency standards. The city council is supposed to be acting on this, but I don't know, there seem to be lots of reasons why we can't get this done just yet. But I think that if the city would adopt, I would like for the plan to actually, and I don't think it does this, I'd like for it to say that the city needs to have the most up-to-date version of the International Energy Efficiency Code. The most efficient one came out several months ago, and the city needs to adopt it. My other point has to do with trees. I really think that we need to cool off our whole city by planting a lot more trees and having more money to maintain trees. And I would like for the plan to really emphasize that and the need for the city to finance this. I also think this is a great opportunity for public-private partnerships, because I drive up and down certain streets in town and I don't see any place on private land to put a tree, but I do see I don't see any space on public land, but I see adjoining private land where we could put trees that would shade the sidewalk, that would shade the street, and that would really, I think, reduce a lot of energy use. So I really would like for the plan to advocate more tree coverage, and especially looking for ways to partner private and public entities to get that done. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Let's see, the next person we have here, Michael Wolff.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Michael Wolff. I am a resident in the 4th District with Kansas City, and I'm a leader with Sunrise Movement KC. I want to thank the members of the committee today who made a motion regarding some of their edits not being incorporated into the plan. I really appreciate that, because you all represent the community and are fighting for the community, and I really appreciate you using your power to do so, especially considering the community input process on this plan, through no fault of the committee, has been a joke. Like, it's kind of ironic looking at all of the engagement that's been happening when these meetings happen, so many different things. We could go on, but community input for this entire plan and its creation has been a joke, and I will maintain that it's been a joke, in spite of the best efforts of this committee to make it better. So thank you. I also want to address a couple of things. Like others have said, there are vacancies on this committee. Mehreen Ansari and Beto Lugo Martinez have applied for these vacancies. I think it's really interesting that the city has declared a climate emergency, and there are 2 vacant spots on this committee. Mayor Quentin Lucas has signed the Green New Deal pledge. I'm in a photo of him with this signed Green New Deal pledge, and these spots are vacant. He also told me when he signed the pledge directly that he really wanted to see more people of different races, backgrounds, and ethnicities involved in the creation of this plan. And I wonder if we were to do a count today of the people in the room and see if that meets that muster. As far as the plan itself, I agree with changes. This plan does not adequately represent the realities of public transportation with our bus drivers. They're operating at 60% capacity. It takes 30+ minutes for a bus to come. The bus drivers themselves are having to act as social workers because the city has a housing problem. And so unhoused folks are having to ride the bus all day, and the bus drivers have to be the social workers for them, which is quite frankly not fair. I think it's interesting that the Brendel Group said like they explicitly said they pride themselves on talking to KC tenants. And it's really funny how this plan doesn't mention green gentrification at all, or the fact that like rents along the streetcar have completely raised. And as far as tree canopy goes, I think it's a great idea. I would advocate that we plant female trees instead of male trees to reduce allergies and also use them as a food source. So that's all for now. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Michael. There are a few comments in the chat I wanted to make sure were read for the purpose of being in the committee. Kristen Riot noted, thanks for the shout out on trees and energy efficiency. Karen, collaborating with Evergy and Arbor Day Foundation, Bridging the Gap, and these partners have given away 2,000 trees in the past 3 years with instructions on precisely where to plant them near the building to maximize their shade. The program continues this spring. Don Wallace noted in the chat, it is good to see the expressed intent on page 1 of the short-term implementation plan. This document is to be a living document updated from time to time. There is some reference to a process in figure 1 identifying some directives. I guess there are questions here. Who is envisioned for being responsible for furthering these directives? Along these lines, is there a discussion in the document that covers the following? Who or what entities are responsible for furthering these directives that will ensure that this truly is a living document? How will staff manage to provide oversight of the promises made by the large number of implementation leaders and supporting parties? What language in a resolution or ordinance should the council pass to assure the community that the document remains a living document? Pages 18 through 22 of the short-term implementation plan identifies the full-time employees for staff time requirements for fulfilling the short-term actions. What is the total number? Is the ordinance as posted by Mr. Savastino and read by Mr. Kelly identifying the responsibilities of the steering committee mentioned in this plan? That would be reassuring to the public of the viability of the plan after approval by council. So I know there's a lot there, so I'll let staff, if they have a chance to respond to Mr. Wallace's comments, speak to those as they can in the chat. But moving back to the people who have raised their hand, I believe the next person we have is Mary Kay McGinty. Mary, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. Mary, we still can't hear you. Trying to talk. Yeah. Maybe it's me. Is there anyone else who can hear Mary? Maybe it's just me.
I can't hear it either. Maybe we should go on to the next person and give Mary time to figure it out.
Okay. Mary, we will come back to you. Just keep your hand up and we will try again here in a second. So the next person we have is Layla Zaidi.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much. My name is Layla Zaidi. I live in the 3rd District. I'm a resident of Kansas City, Missouri, and I'm a leader with Sunrise Movement Kansas City. I have been at many of these meetings, and first of all, I'd like to echo Michael Wolff's comments to thank the committee members who did air some tension today, because there is tension in how this plan is being drafted. And another aspect of that I would like to name is this common refrain that there are 2 vacancies, and I would like to thank the Office of Environmental Quality. It's great to hear that there is a desire for more collaboration, and part of that, from what I understand, is that the committee is going to be tasked with overseeing and ensuring that these public comments are truly incorporated. So I'd like to name that there are 24, I believe, organizations that have called for the city and for Mayor Lucas to appoint Mehreen Ansari and Beto Lugo Martinez to this committee. That includes Stand Up KC, Advocates for Immigrant Rights and Reconciliation, Clean Air Now, Sierra Club, Mothers Out Front, Bike Walk KC, KC Tenants, there's many more that I don't have time to name, but there has been, as of now, no move on that. And that makes me very concerned that we don't have a diverse enough and just full committee to truly incorporate all those public comments. And the reason why we need public comments is not because of a formality, but because it has been shown that fossil fuel interests have been influencing this process. That's been clear with the inclusion of renewable natural gas. That's been clear with, frankly, Evergy being allowed to speak as to why utility shutoffs, moratoriums are not necessary. These things concern us as community because we want a plan that is truly backed by the public, and we're not going to get there without ambitious, bold planning. And I fear that these companies are convincing the city to not be truly imaginative. If we truly invested public dollars all together into the solutions, then we can do more than what we are told is possible by those who stand to profit from a system that continues to contract. And that's why I especially want to emphasize that we need a strong, equitable building decarbonization plan, one that really empowers residents. We know that running gas stoves in buildings gives children 40% more likely to have asthma. We know it can lead to poor indoor air quality. This is not an issue of wokeness, so to speak, or canceling the industry. This is about literally protecting people's health, and our community is going to fight in those public comments to make sure that it's clear and on the public record. Thank you.
At the forefront.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Layla. Let's see, we have, Mary Kay, we're gonna go to one more person and then we'll try you again. Casey Mo resident. One more quick thing before Casey Mo resident speaks. If I just do want to ask folks if you're not speaking right now, if you can mute. Thank you.
Yeah, hi.
Yes, Casey Mo resident. Yes.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, so
yes,
good
can
afternoon.
you identify give your name really quick?
Yeah, my name is Beto. I'm the executive director of Clean Air Now here in Kansas City and a resident of Kansas City, Missouri as well. So, I just wanted to share some thoughts on the plan, especially looking at it from the environmental justice lens, which we see in this plan that has many flawed, commitments and how we're going to address climate change in the near future. And the concern is that there is no equity in place in all of this plan. I know you all had a consultant, Sophic Solution, to help through that plan. I still need to do a little bit more of that research. As you know, this is a very comprehensive plan, so I'm going to need time to also from our organization to provide a robust comment letter on the whole plan. But I wanted to talk about the formal process of submitting public comments, that it should be made available. I know it's already available on the website, but I think where it flawed as well is that it should have been actively available through the whole process, through the whole stage of development of this process. And actually, I wanted to make a request that as community members, I don't know when this plan will go out to them, because I know this is only one venue and how we can contribute to the comments or participate. But I also feel like others aren't aware of this climate steering protection committee, right? Because this is its own committee. So I want to ask that any comments from the public, any and all comments from the public, including from organizations, be included in the plan as responses in the plan. Maybe you can add it as an appendices and add it there. And I think it's important to think about that, so we can go back in a few years and think about where we flawed, where we failed in this plan. We don't say we can't say we know everything as activists, but I can tell you that we see the problems with this plan, especially, like I said, the EJ concerns, right, in our communities. And so I want to make that ask, that if possible, I do want to make that ask that our comment letter be included as an appendices into this plan, and community members comments as well. And then the other issue I just wanted to touch on is, I was looking at the greenhouse gas inventory standard operating procedures, and I just skimmed through it really quickly because still need to spend a few hours of my time, right, a couple of weeks maybe, to read this whole plan and really understand, all the issues with it. So one thing that I saw, though, that just by looking at it is that the plan and the GHG inventory, it says that you all identified the emissions from government operations and the entire Kansas City community. The data was normalized for weather, as weather does not typically have a significant impact on electricity consumption. I don't know where this comes from, but I feel that I still need to do my research on it, like exactly where this information was pulled from, because clearly last year in February, when we had that storm, actually, energy, the weather impacted the whole electrical system, electrical grid, right? So I don't know if this was just an oversight, or maybe someone can explain what that really means. Because if you're just looking at the users of the utilities, but what I understand, and the consumption by community members, then those emissions aren't going to be as high as the fossil fuel interest, right? The fossil fuel that are producing these emissions, like the coal plant. And then the other thing I just want to talk about real quick. Yes.
I am sorry to interrupt you, but you are at your time. So.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, real quick. I just want to make sure that this process, when it goes out to community, that they aren't, they aren't cut at 1 minute. I think this is very important to hear everyone's voice. These plans, this is actually, if you look at the executive order when Clinton was in place, this is a civil rights issue, when not allowing members of the public to speak for more than 1 minute, 3 minutes. It shouldn't be more, but there is that. We need to really be intentional. We want to make sure the community participates on this. So, like I said, we'll provide a comment later to this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Beto. And I do want to note a comment from Eslin in the chat. We also need to add a requirement to the climate plan to keep OEQ in the city manager's office. Since we are dealing with a climate crisis, OEQ should not be relegated to a subdivision of the neighborhoods department. More than ever, we will need OEQ to stay at the forefront to ensure implementation of the climate action policies that will eventually be adopted to prioritize, climate action, as opposed to being bogged down in operational activities like overgrown weeds violations. Thank you for the comment, Eslin. Okay, Mary K. McGinty, let's give you another shot. Okay, Mary, do you want to try one more time? Let me see here. I thought I saw another comment. Something wrong with microphone. Mary Kay, I'm terribly sorry. If you want to try to type up your comments, thank you. And I will read them into the record once they're in here. Billy Davies.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Thank you so much, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee, and staff present. Thank you so much. My name is Billy Davies. I'm a 6th District resident in Kansas City, Missouri. And just about every comment that I had thought to include here has said, and I want to just lift up the comments previously stated and appreciate the motion that was raised earlier and the discussion that followed. Just would like to lift up. It's a saying that I'm not going to repeat but paraphrase so I don't butcher it. But as in the physical world and in the social world, it is in areas of tension where growth can occur. And I think really the public benefits from the discussion had today and these issues being raised. And I applaud the city, the staff, and the committee for making sure that there will be time to thoroughly discuss these issues at the end of the public comment period, and applaud the city again for having this public comment period. And as I just put it in the chat, also very much looking forward to an issue that will come up before the committee has time to deliberate on this. But the Finance Committee meeting this Wednesday at 9 a.m. at the 26th floor of City Hall Council Chambers where the proposal will be on the table to move the Office of Environmental Quality away from the city manager's office to being an office within another department. Folks are already mobilizing. A lot of folks present already spoke about it. The need to oppose this move before more substantial public engagement can be had. Very much looking forward to speaking on behalf of this committee's work, supporting funding for the climate protection plan and support so that OEQ and this committee can continue to do its important work. Thank you for this important meeting today and for all of your service. Also, we'll add another echo. We need to have a full climate protection plan steering committee. Please make sure that this is raised with the mayor staffing committee. Thank you for your time and for your service.
Okay, thank you, Billy. You see, we're still waiting on comments from Mary Kay. Nikki Goodson has her hand raised.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Nikki. I live in the Waldo area. I volunteer with Mothers Out Front Kansas City, but I don't consider myself an expert at all on this topic. There's been a lot of really intelligent comments, and I agree with a lot of what I've heard. I just wanted to emphasize on behalf of my children the urgency that we have for making drastic changes as soon as possible. I think the city should focus on transition towards renewable resources, not coal or natural gas, and I want to see an improvement to access to public transportation and to safe, expansive pathways for biking and walking. I think the city should lead by example, as well as also educate citizens who might not know or understand the details of climate change. That's all.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Nikki. And then apologies again if I mispronounce your name. Aitness Mina?
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hi everyone, my name is Atenas Mena. I'm in District 2 of Kansas City, Missouri, and I'm the co-executive director for Clean Air Now. Thank you for allowing this time to share our thoughts and for having this moment. I do want to echo what everyone else has already been saying. I feel they've brought really great points. Some key ones that I want to bring up during my time is filling those vacancy seats, because what I'm noticing with the committee is that there's just the lack of diversity and the lack of community voice. I would like to mention again that like they had already said, is that Beto Lugo Martinez and Maureen Ansari had been proposed for filling those seats, and we did have a lot of support. I believe it's very important that we continue to try to make this a more complete committee that's really providing the representation of the diversity in Kansas City, Missouri. Another point that I wanted to make was that we want to shift away from renewable energy and really look at removing and coming up with actual solutions that are going to make a big difference for climate change and for equity reasons in the environmental justice community. So we don't want coal, we don't want natural gas. We need actual solutions that are going to take care of the communities most impacted. And I think that's that we're not reflecting on how, for example, the Hawthorne coal plant is causing more damage to people of color and low-income households compared to other neighborhoods in Kansas City, Missouri. And there's also implication for health concerns. I worry for the cancer rates. I worry for the asthma. I worry for the air quality index not really reflecting well on how it's impacting these communities and the children that live nearby. There's actually an elementary school that's right by the Hawthorne plant, and just want to really formalize on how it's important that we are equitable when we are considering what we need to prioritize and what we need to have in this plan. I would like to see more community input and an additional, some more time to be able to have community voice involved as well, since this was, I felt like short notice, and the comment period does feel a little bit short as well, knowing that we have to read quite a bit of material, which I appreciate you all put this together, but it does take time to get community collaboration and voice put in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And let me see, there are a few other comments in the chat. Still waiting on comments. Beth, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, as long as there was no other public comment before me, I just wanted to make an observation since the Hawthorne coal plant did come up a lot today, and that was also, part of the committee's recommendations that did not get added to the plan. I wanted to kind of clarify and reiterate that that was why I supported, one of the big reasons why I supported Robin's motion at the beginning. And I would encourage, I would like to ask if Laura can provide the public the explanation that the committee received for that not being added, just so there's some transparency around that aspect.
I can actually take that one. So that particular recommendation is not off the table at this stage of the game. We as a city have to be careful about what we say and not say on the record. So that particular action is actually going to go in front of our legal team to review that to see if that's an appropriate thing a city can do. So that was something that we will be bringing back to the steering committee based on the answer that we get from our legal team. So that's basically why we didn't put it out there at this stage of the game, because we have to be careful about liability to the city about what we say. So that's the simplest way I can put that particular action. It's not off the table. We need to get further information from our legal team.
Thank you, Andy. I just thought it was important, since that was brought up so many times, that we provide that explanation.
Fair enough.
Let me see. Erica Flores has her hand raised.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I can't get my video on, but that's fine. I will just speak. I first just wanted to say thank you so much to the committee for all of the work that they have done on this plan. I think that a lot of the feedback that you guys have incorporated has gone a long way, and I just want to show some appreciation for the work that I know you guys have done on this plan. With that being said, I would just like to highlight a few things to elevate. Number one being that I really do want to emphasize, kind of with what was just brought up by Beth, that we really emphasize shutting down that coal plant. I also want to emphasize the importance of bringing up those tensions. Some of these industry ties to natural gas are really important to address. And I think that, going for net zero is not good enough. I don't think that that will get us to the goals that we need to be striving for. The third thing I'd like to bring up is just, again, really emphasizing that access to public transit. I think that emphasizing that as a community, as a city, is really important to allow for some equitable options for multiple members and multiple communities within our Kansas City area. I think that transit is a huge door to a lot of the different issues that we see throughout the city, and just in general, good access to jobs and all kinds of different things. So I think that's really important. I think also taking care of the community that is most impacted is really, really important. I think that there are some good measures in the plan that address that, but I think that there is also more that we could be doing. And the final point that I just want to bring up is, I really think throughout this entire process, we need to make it more advertised to the public. We need to make sure that we are sharing this with larger groups of people, because I feel that throughout this entire process, it's been difficult to know, exactly where to find information related to this plan. I think it's largely relied on internal circles of people sharing the information. But if there was a way that we could get larger groups of the community involved, and, I really appreciate that in this meeting, we've had more time for public comments, but if we could get more of that as we go forward, that would be great. So thank you so much. That's all I have to say.
And if I can just add to that, Michael, real quick, is that
yes, sir.
Certainly our office's intention is to continue this month reaching out to as many community members as we can. The original resolution from 20005 that spoke to all the stakeholders that need to be part of this process, we're going to be following up with that resolution and literally reaching out to all of those groups, which we did a fair amount of that engagement through the planning process, but we want to make sure that while this draft is still out for comment, that we're going to follow up with those groups again to make sure that this is your another opportunity to provide input. So Rest assured, that's another one of my staff's responsibilities is reaching out to community this month.
Thank you, Andy.
And
okay.
the comment is check the resolution. I might try to drop it in chat that identifies all those groups.
Okay. I'm going to try to really quickly get through this because I know we're at our time, but there are a few other comments to point to. Ashley Sadowski said another observation to share. I noticed on the implementation plan there is very few MWDBE organizations listed. It would be great to better understand who might be missing and how we might add a goal in the plan that builds the capacity of people of color to lead implementation. Don Wallace noted the remarks from Eslyn Tucker and Billy Davies on the possibility of moving OEQ out of the city manager's office indicate an impact to the possible answers for my earlier questions regarding monitoring the implementation of the plan and to ensure it remains a living document. This possible move should be concerning for the steering committee and the audience here. Mary Kay McGinty noted, I'm worried that on page 25 of the plan, it says the cost savings from increasing the percentage of renewable energy in the utility grid mix is unknown and likely an increase in electric utility rates. As Beth Polly said early on, that is misleading. Beto, as KCMO resident, said trees should not substitute for emission standards or laws and strong polluter enforcement. Ryan Dickey noted, I can't stay any longer, but would just like to say, I've hardly heard a word of testimony I disagree with this afternoon. Thank you for all of your time. Eslyn Tucker asked a question, has Evergy threatened to sue or something? We hope that Evergy will do the right thing and put the well-being of people, ratepayers first instead of your shareholders. Mary Kay McGinty had another comment. The city should advocate on our behalf to the Public Service Commission to retire the Hawthorne coal plant by 2025 and all remaining coal plants by 2030 and ensure ratepayer money is being spent not on more gas infrastructure, but on renewables and helping modernize our households and buildings to help meet the demands of the grid. Michael Wolff, I completely agree with all of Erica's comments. Layla Zaidi, so it is legal for the city to endorse Spire and Evergy solutions, but when we want to include a provision advocating for Evergy to close the coal plant, it is suddenly singling out companies. I'm just a little confused, but I will reflect my concerns in public comments. Kaylee Ford, yeah, what's with that? Michael Wolff, can the OEQ provide the list of those groups? I second Ryan, super appreciate everyone's comments. Let's see, I'm trying to see is there anything else here. Thank you. I know the resolution, but the actual specific groups you're reaching out to is what I was asking for. Kaylee Ford, a second Layla's comments. Eslyn, yes, absolutely. The city should be advocating on behalf of citizens. I think you meant shutting the Hawthorne plant, so I apologize. Andy added in section 5 of, let me see, is this resolution 20005?
Yes.
Okay. The city will develop plans to accomplish these goals through a transparent and inclusive stakeholder process, which includes community members, as well as representatives from organizations representing faith groups, youth, labor, unions, public health groups, businesses, academic institutions, homeowners associations, housing groups, and environmental, economic, racial, gender, family, and disability justice, and indigenous, immigrant, and women's rights organizations, and other such interested parties who will be integral to the effort. Let me get through here really quick. Jim Turner, I share the concerns about moving OEQ. Kelly Gilbert, I want to agree with Ashley's comments regarding MWBE implementers. And second or third, the need to continue outreach to community organizations. Also, thanks to Kristen and Michael for advocating for cooperation in place of adversarial rhetoric. Beto, net zero is not a solution to the climate crisis. Polluters, fossil fuel, always creating the playbooks for local, state, and federal governments. Combating racism requires aggressive climate action to address structures, policies, and practices such as pollution, offset, net zero, etc. that further exacerbate climate change, environmental racism in the heartland. Okay, so with all that, I think I need to turn it back over to Robin.
All right, thank you, Michael. Thank you everyone for the discussion and for the comments and questions today. I know we're over time. So at this point, I would just want to ask if there's any other business for today. I wanted to just take the temperature real quick and see if the committee has any appetite for a motion to support keeping OEQ in the office of the city manager before we adjourn today.
I will second that motion.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, all in favor of the committee taking a position of support for keeping OEQ within the city manager's office, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So maybe Michael, you and I could work on getting a comment submitted to the finance before the finance committee meeting this week.
I may actually end up going there myself, so I'm also happy
Okay.
to deliver that in person.
Wonderful. Okay. With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn for today.
Really quick before we do, last comment, Eslin dropped in, data shows both wind and solar are now cheaper the more we roll out wind and solar. I'm assuming that's what WNS is. The more we will all benefit from lower costs. This is a punctuating moment to speed up electrification. Evergy, this could result in a major opportunity for you as we shift to 100% electrification. Thank you again for your comment, Eslin. And yes, Robin, I apologize. Back to you.
Oh, that's all right. I'll just make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, yes.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thanks, everyone. Meeting's adjourned.
Thanks, Robin.
Okay. Next meeting, April 18th, or sooner if we hear otherwise.